Hey, I'm Mike Davidson with Gunwerks. I wanted to talk just a little bit about muzzleloader safety. We should follow all safety guidelines of any centerfire rifle. That means we always keep it pointed in a safe direction. We always treat it like it's loaded, routine maintenance, and things like that. With the addition of those rules, there's a few more that go specifically with a muzzleloader. One of the most common mistakes that people make owning a muzzleloader and shooting a muzzleloader is a double charge. That means you've loaded it once, you forgot about it, and you load it again right on top of it. That's going to cause some pretty serious damage to your muzzleloader for sure, and probably you if you're not lucky. How do we get by that? A couple easy steps. Number one, we're going to just do a quick modification to our ramrod. You can do that with your wife's or your girlfriend's fingernail polish, some tape, or anything to mark a line on your ramrod. And so what we do is we load the rifle for the first time. Where the ramrod meets the crown of the barrel, we mark it. Just something to give us a reference point to know that this thing is either loaded or not loaded. The other thing that's going to do is it's going to show us if we have our powder and our bullet combination right. So when we have it loaded and we push it down with the ramrod, we're going to see that line, and that's going to tell us that, hey, we've got the right combination in here. So it serves twofold, and it's going to keep us from double charging that if we use it to check to see if we're loaded before we load it again. Another common problem with muzzleloaders is a misfire. Misfires can happen for multiple reasons. Guys that hunt in extreme conditions, their powder might get a little wet. You might not have done the best service on your breech plug, and so there's an obstruction there. There's all kinds of reasons that you might get a misfire. Along with the misfires, you can have another scenario where if you have not seated your bullet and sabot tight together or tight on the powder, you can get that same effect. Kind of a weird combustion happens and you can have some serious problems. And so that's where our Ramrod Mark comes in as well. Once we've seated that bullet, we can see if our index mark is high, and if it is, you know that you need to seat a little bit deeper until you're at the right level. And then you'll know that you're loaded properly. Misfires are scary because you've got this loaded weapon that didn't go off. And so what you want to do is just keep that rifle pointed in a safe direction, keep it seated tight against your shoulder, and let's try a couple more primers. So remove the primer that just went off, put a new one in, point it in a safe direction, and try shooting it again. And repeat those steps 3 or 4 or 5 times just to make sure that this thing is not going to go off. Keep it in a safe direction, and then follow our steps on how to unload a muzzleloader, and you'll get that out safely. Other muzzleloader safety rules, very common mistake is space between your sabot and your bullet, or space between your powder charge and your sabot. Again, the mark on our ramrod is going to help us determine that we have that seated all the way. We push our ramrod down and we come to our mark, and that's going to mean that we have that seated properly and ready to go. In a Gunwerks muzzleloader, we never shoot smokeless powder. Black powder or black powder substitute only at the recommended charge. Never vary from that, and we promise you, you will be safe with that charge and powder combination. You never want to prime your muzzleloader before you're ready to shoot. If you're in the field and you've gotten on that animal and he's gotten away from you and you're playing this cat and mouse game, your muzzleloader's probably loaded. But let's keep the primer out and let's keep it safe. Don't put the primer in, don't engage the bolt until you're ready to fire on that animal. That's going to keep you safe, and that's going to keep your guide and any other people around you safe as well. Leaving your muzzleloader inoperable is the best way to store it. If you're out in the field and you're hunting and you've loaded it, you probably shouldn't leave it loaded through the night and the next day. Unload it safely and leave that inoperable. You don't know who's going to touch that thing, and it's just a lot safer not to have that. After a good shooting session and after a good hunting trip, because black powder is somewhat corrosive, it's always a very good idea to clean your muzzleloader before storage. A light coating of gun oil or some other lubrication in the bore and in your action and breech plug is going to do you a lot of good if you're storing it for a long time. I think as hunters and as sportsmen and firearms enthusiasts, we need to watch out not only for ourselves and the way we handle our firearms in a safe way, but we need to keep an eye out for others that aren't following the rules as well. Almost to the point that it's annoying. If you see somebody that doesn't have their ramrod marked, you should probably tell them why it's a good idea to do that and suggest that. If you see somebody pointing, if you're hunting with somebody, make sure that that firearm or that muzzleloader is unloaded. There's no reason to have a loaded weapon walking around in the woods until you're ready to use it. So it's our responsibility to make sure others are following the safety rules as well. If you do that, we'll all be safe and we'll all have a good time out in the field.